Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be chatting about my current favorite bronzers for medium to deeper skin tones. I've done about 4 or 5 of these videos now on bronzers that I feel like work for around a MAC NC42 / Fenty 320, but the reason that I'm mentioning these as well is they all have great formulas, so no matter your skin tone, if there's a shade for you, I think the formulas are great, and these are formulas that I feel like have a decent amount of shades in them, so more people can enjoy them than some other bronzers that exist out there that have like 1 or 2 shades, if that makes sense. So I've also done these videos for lipsticks, highlighters, blushes. I will link the playlist down below. I also have a tutorial for this look that I filmed on Instagram, so that will be linked below as well, along with everything that I'm wearing. I think that's everything. If you enjoyed this style of video, be sure to subscribe, but let's go ahead and get started. So the first bronzer that I want to talk about is very high-end, and I mostly bought it kind of like as a treat for myself. I believe earlier this year around my birthday, I think. The packaging is gorgeous, and that's what got me. It's this kind of turquoise and gold, glamorous, vintage look. It is the Gucci powder bronzer. Gucci Beauty is a newer line they launched in 2019. I'm wearing mine in the shade 4. There's 5 different shades in here, so it goes even deeper than this, and there's 12 grams in here. That is the shade I have, shade number 4. My friend Aisha, who's quite a bit deeper than me, wears shade number 5. This retails for $62 American, $81 Canadian, so a higher end item like I mentioned, but I kind of picked this up solely for the packaging. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I really love the bronzer itself. It has this satiny look and feel. There's no glitter in here. The shade is perfect. It's really warm, really bronzy, blends beautiful. It has about a medium pigmentation. Some bronzers are like have a ton in there. Some you can build a bunch. I find this is just perfect in terms of pigmentation, and I'm really, really impressed with this. It's not just a beautiful vanity item, but don't worry, I've got some more drugstore items coming. Drugstore bronzers are limited. Drugstore bronzers for deeper skin are even more limited, but this is the Wet n Wild Color Icon bronzer. This is in the shade What Shady Beaches, which is kind of hilarious. They had bronzers out before. This is their newer line. There are only 4 in total, but there's a decent shade range. It's not the best, but it's pretty good. This one, similar to the Gucci, actually is more of like a satin finish. There's no real chunks of glitter in here. The color is warm. I would say this has quite a bit of pigmentation in it, but it's not it's easily blendable. And I guess while we're here, why don't I tell you my favorite bronzing brush of all time is the MAC 140S. So good. You see me using it. It's pretty much the only brush I use for my bronzer. Wet n Wild, they are cruelty free, they're affordable, available at the drugstore, this formula, and most of their formulas now they're working towards being vegan, which I think is cool, and I really like this. They launched a bunch of new stuff, and I really liked pretty much everything that they launched, but I was so glad to see another drugstore bronzer option. Back to another great high-end bronzer. This is from Charlotte Tilbury. It is the Airbrush Bronzer, a matte bronzing filter for face and body. You get a ton of product in here. It's not just big looking, it actually is a bunch of product. I think the packaging, by the way, reminds me of the Gucci in the sense that it's like, this is a vanity item, you know, this is some vanity stuff. I have mine in the shade 3. There's 4 in total, so there's a shade that's even deeper than this. You get a huge pan. What I think about is what is cool about this, it retails for $65 Canadian, but for 45, yeah, I'm just looking it up here, for 46, you get actually the refill. So you get to keep the gorgeous packaging. I was talking about this recently in a sunscreen video about Fenty because they did that with their SPF, but you can actually replace this full pan. So you save $20, you feel like, you know, you're doing your part for the environment, and you get your gorgeous Charlotte Tilbury bronzer, and you get to keep it in beautiful packaging. I'm really happy to see that. I think that's awesome. I wish more brands did that, but of course the most important thing for me is the actual formulation. I think it's really, really beautiful. It's soft, it's matte, it's got great pigmentation. I would say this is definitely a warm bronzer, but it's got a nice amount of depth to it. Really blends out so beautifully, and I love the packaging. Any of Charlotte Tilbury's airbrush products, like the airbrush powder, the airbrush blushes, gorgeous. Anything from the complexion for her in powder format, I've been so impressed with, and I used this non-stop pretty much up until I got the Gucci. A brand that's a little bit newer and a little bit less well known perhaps is Vesca, but they make really great stuff, and they launched these bronzers last year, I think. They're the soft matte bronzing powders, and they come in 7 different shades, but the shades go very deep. I actually just happened to come across one of the deeper shades. This is Kissed by Bobbi, which is the 2nd deepest shade. And as you'll see, I'm actually going to gift this maybe to my concierge or donate it because it's brand new, because they sent me a couple of shades to figure out what shade was going to be mine. You can see this is very deep, very cool tone, but the shade that I wear is Kissed by Diani, which is actually the third deepest shade, which is super cool. I normally end up somewhere in the middle, so 3 of 7, and even this has quite a bit of pigmentation. This I would say is like fully matte. It has a little bit of a deeper color to it. It's got this almost bricky shade. They are cruelty-free and vegan as well. Diani is described as a medium with golden undertones, and the other shade that I showed was a deep with warm red undertones. This you're getting 10 grams of product in here, so a little bit less than the Gucci. And in the Wet n Wild, you're getting how many grams? I think it's interesting to know how much they put in. 11 grams of product. So all about the same, 10 to 12. And it retails for $30 American. They did send me this, so I can't say for sure what it would be like shopping from their website, but I've never heard a bad thing about them, so maybe someone to check out. A great drugstore bronzer, especially if you're looking for something that has a little shimmer, a little bit of glow in it, and another great big amount of product in here. You're getting let me see, 14 grams. So the second biggest next to the Charlotte Tilbury. This is the NYX Professional, no, why am I reading it all out? NYX California Beeman bronzer in the shade the OC. This comes in 6 different shades, and this is one of the only bronzer that I'm mentioning today that has like significant shimmer in it, but it's not that it's significant in like it's really going to show on your face, but it's definitely going to be more glowy than the other ones. The Wet n Wild is probably the next shimmeriest. And I'm normally not a huge fan of it. This wouldn't be like my primary bronzer, but on a day like today, a day where I'm looking for a little bit of glow, a little bit more meld into the skin, maybe even a little less definition and more just like bronziness, this is beautiful for that. This isn't the deepest shade. I think there's another shade up, but it's got a decent amount of depth in there, and it's a good option if you're looking for something a little bit shimmery. They do have their matte bronzers, but I'd love to see them come out and with a new iteration of those. The NYX matte bronzer is the first bronzer that I ever used and liked, fun fact. But I've still continued to like these. They come in 7 different shades. On the NYX Canada website, they're retailing for $16. In the US, at Ulta, did I have that pulled up? They're for $13. Like with drugstore makeup, it's going to change brand to brand, but another great drugstore option. Something that I mention often to people, and I would have mentioned in my last bronzer video, is to look at face powders and powder foundations if you really have trouble finding a good shade, especially at the drugstore where you're going to get limited options like the the Rimmel Matte Stay Matte Powder is one of my favorite bronzers of all time, and it's a face powder. So that is why I wanted to mention this from Laura Mercier. It is their Candle Glow Sheer Perfecting Powder. And this comes in 6 shades. I have the deepest shade. I could probably actually still wear shade number 5 underneath it. I think I ordered this online, but you can see it's got really a nice amount of color. The beautiful thing about this is it's a sheer powder. So it really gives you so much playtime and wiggle room and forgiveness if you get a little bit nervous with bronzers because there's just not a lot of pigmentation. This is meant to lightly set the face. Like, what do they even say that this is for? I fully ignored it. Silky pressed powder, just enough sheer color to create a glow. So like I mentioned, it really is just like a lightweight bronzer, if that makes sense. You get 9 grams of product in here, retails for $39, not Canadian, $39 American and $50 Canadian, but really, really beautiful. I mostly pointed out because I want to make the point of like powders make great bronzers, but this is really, really beautiful. And if you are my shade, generally you could almost go a shade down in this, I think, but because it is more sheer, you get a lot of wiggle room to play around with it, and just a beautiful light option. And there's no it's really, really satiny. It's got like that baked feel to it, but no chunkiness. So smooth. And maybe even using a brush like that I mentioned that's a little bit somewhere in between kind of dense and fluffy is the perfect amount. If you get something too dense, you won't pick up a ton of product with this, but it just looks more beautiful going on in like light layers because that's what it's meant for. So I really like this. And lastly, although I'm more so talking about bronzers, I did want to bring up this contour because I think it's really unique and just such a great option. There's not much out there if you have my skin tone or deeper. This is the Essence Contouring Duo Palette. I've said that this is the most similar or closest dupe to the Kevyn Aucoin Sculpting Powder, which is like a $60 powder that I've broken 3 times. This is in the darker skin color, but when I mix these two together, it's so perfect. You get a nice amount of cool tone. This one has quite a bit of depth. This on its own would be not enough for me. This would be too much. so I do kind of have to mix them together on my brush, but really good, underrated, and a great actual contour option if you're looking for something to add like depth and lines and add like that cool tone to your face and really contour as opposed to bronzing and adding depth. This is such a good option and so cheap. It's it's $5.99 at Ulta, and I think I picked it up, I think it was about the same at Shoppers Drug Mart in Canada. So those are my current favorite bronzers. Be sure to let me know down below what you are loving, and if you're looking for more options, I will have more linked in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SamanthaJaneYT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!